Hey everyone, welcome back. There's so much hype around blockchain these days. It's like everywhere you look. But honestly, it can be pretty confusing, right? So, today, we're going way beyond like just the basics of Bitcoin. We're going a deep dive into how blockchain is actually changing finance in the real world. It's happening now. Think of it like this, okay? We're about to explore a financial system, but it's built on code. You can lend money, trade, even own like fractions of things like real estate, all without a traditional bank, ready to unlock the potential.
I think it's ready.
Let's get started with DeFi. That's short for decentralized finance. Might sound a little intimidating at first, but trust me, it's fascinating stuff.
What I think is so intriguing about DeFi, it's really turning the traditional financial system on its head. Instead of relying on those big banks, we're talking about peer-to-peer transactions, powered by code, creating a system that's potentially way more open, way more accessible.
Okay, I'm with you on cutting out the middlemen, for sure. But how does DeFi actually work? Like, I need to understand the mechanics of it all.
Imagine a vending machine, but for financial services. That's kind of what smart contracts are like in DeFi. They're self-executing agreements, written in code, that automate and secure transactions. So let's say you want to borrow some crypto, right? You interact with a DeFi lending platform, smart contract, you put in your collateral, and boom, the loan is automatically processed. No bank, no paperwork, just pure code doing its thing.
That's wild. So what are some real-world examples of these DeFi vending machines in action?
Decentralized exchanges are a prime example, or DX. On a DX, you can trade crypto directly with other users. Cut out those pesky fees and delays of traditional exchanges. Then you have DeFi lending platforms, where instead of going to a bank, you can lend crypto to others and earn interest. Or borrow against your own crypto holdings. Like a peer-to-peer lending network, but powered by, you guessed it, blockchain.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal here for sure, but let's be real for a second. Are there any downsides to this whole DeFi thing?
Of course, no system is perfect. One of the big challenges with DeFi is security. Since it's all about code, if there's a bug or vulnerability in a smart contract, it could be exploited. And then there's the whole regulatory landscape. Governments are still trying to figure out how to classify and how to regulate DeFi. So there's definitely a lot of uncertainty in the space.
Right, kind of like the Wild West out there. But hey, high risk, high reward, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to something that, I don't know, really captures my imagination, tokenization. It's like, imagine owning a tiny piece of a Picasso or skyscraper.
Tokenization is fascinating. Essentially what you're doing, you're taking a real-world asset, like a piece of art or real estate, and dividing its ownership into digital tokens on a blockchain. It's like taking something that's usually really difficult to divide and turning it into easily tradable digital shares.
Okay, break this down for me. How does that actually work? I'm picturing like slicing up a Picasso into tiny digital squares.
Haha, not quite. Think of it more like this. Instead of buying a whole company stock, you can buy just a fraction of a share, right? Tokenization does the same thing, but with real-world assets. You're buying a digital token that represents a fraction of ownership in that asset.
Gotcha. So instead of needing, millions to invest in a high-value asset, I could potentially just buy a token for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
I like where this is going. So what are the main advantages of tokenization then?
One of the biggest benefits is definitely increased liquidity. Because these tokens can be traded so easily on a blockchain, it makes buying and selling these fractions much smoother, even for assets that are typically really hard to sell quickly, like real estate.
That makes a lot of sense. What else?
Well, there's fractional ownership, like we were just talking about. It opens up investment opportunities that were, previously out of reach for most people, and it can potentially lower those barriers to entry. Instead of dealing with, mountains of paperwork and all those intermediaries, tokenization can really streamline the entire investment process.
So tokenization could make investing more accessible and more liquid. Sounds pretty revolutionary. But I'm guessing there's some challenges too, right?
Definitely. The legal and regulatory frameworks surrounding tokenization are still developing, which creates some uncertainty. Governments are working on, how to classify these tokens, how to protect investors. It's a work in progress.
All right, so it's exciting potential, but definitely some things to keep an eye on. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how blockchain is changing how we pay for things, both domestically and internationally. I mean, who doesn't love the idea of cheaper and faster payments?
One of the most impactful applications of blockchain is definitely its ability to simplify cross-border payments. Traditionally, sending money overseas has been a slow and expensive process, right? Involving multiple intermediaries. Blockchain can streamline all of that by allowing direct peer-to-peer transfers, which are significantly faster and cheaper.
So are we talking about like sending Bitcoin across borders? Or are there other ways blockchain is making payments more efficient?
Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin definitely play a role, especially stablecoins, which are pegged to stable assets like the US dollar. That helps reduce volatility. But there are also blockchain-based payment networks that are partnering with banks to facilitate these transfers more efficiently.
So it's not just about replacing those traditional systems, it's also about improving them with blockchain technology.
Mm.
Can blockchain also change things for like domestic payments too?
Absolutely. Blockchain can bring faster settlement times, reduce fraud, and lower those processing costs for payments within a country. We're even starting to see the emergence of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs.
Hold on, CBDCs, what are those?
Think of it like a digital version of a country's fiat currency, but issued and managed on a blockchain by the central bank. This could potentially, revolutionize how we use money.
Wow, so blockchain's impact on payments seems huge. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the rules of the game here.
Hmm.
What's the deal with blockchain regulation?
Navigating the regulatory landscape is super important in the blockchain world because blockchain is decentralized and operates across borders. It creates some unique challenges for regulators who are used to dealing with more centralized institutions. Different countries are taking different approaches, which honestly can be a bit of a maze to navigate.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what are some of the big regulatory issues that governments and businesses are grappling with right now?
Anti-money laundering and know your customer compliance are big ones, or AML and KYC. Regulators want to make sure blockchain isn't used for illegal activities like money laundering. That means companies operating in the blockchain space need to have strong systems in place to verify their users' identities and track transactions.
So it's a balancing act between encouraging innovation and making sure it's used responsibly. What about taxes? How are governments figuring out how to tax cryptocurrencies and digital assets?
Taxation is another complex area. Some countries treat crypto as property, while others view it as currency. This lack of clear guidelines can be pretty confusing for both individuals and businesses involved with crypto.
So it sounds like we're still in those early stages, and there's a lot to figure out. But it's clear that regulation is a critical piece of the puzzle. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about. With all this innovation happening, what role do you think blockchain will play in your financial future? It's something to ponder as we continue our exploration in part 2. We'll see you then.
So yeah, it's definitely something to think about, especially with how quickly this technology is evolving. What's clear is that blockchain is already changing finance, and it's not just for tech enthusiasts anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're seeing blockchain-based solutions become more and more mainstream, changing everything from investing to how we send money. It's not even a question of if anymore, it's how. How is it going to shape our financial future?
Right. And one of the most exciting possibilities, I think, is greater financial inclusion. For a long time, traditional finance has shut out millions of people because they lack access, face high fees, or just struggle with all those complex requirements. Blockchain has the potential to change all that, give everyone a chance to participate in the global economy.
That's a really important point. We often get caught up in the tech itself, but the human impact is huge. Giving more people access to financial tools can empower individuals, create a fairer world.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individuals either. Blockchain can also help small businesses, especially in developing countries, by giving them access to cheaper and faster cross-border payments. Opens up global markets, new growth opportunities.
It's amazing to think that something as technical as blockchain can have such a big impact on people's lives all over the world.
It really shows the power of technology when it's used to solve real-world problems. And this brings us to another key aspect of blockchain: transparency and accountability.
Okay, yes, transparency. How exactly does blockchain make things more transparent?
Well, remember, blockchain is like a distributed ledger, right? Meaning transactions are recorded and verified by a whole network of computers, not just one central authority. This makes it almost impossible to tamper with records because any changes would be immediately visible to everyone on the network.
So it's like a public record of every transaction,
Yeah.
making it a lot harder to hide anything shady.
Exactly. And this transparency can have a huge impact on things like supply chains, voting systems, even charities. By providing a clear trail of transactions, blockchain can help ensure that products are ethically sourced, votes are counted accurately, and donations actually reach the right people.
Wow, that's incredible. It's mind-blowing how one technology can have so many different applications. It feels like we're only just scratching the surface of what's possible.
I agree. That's what makes this field so exciting. There are always new innovations and uses popping up. It's constantly changing, which is why it's so important to stay informed and involved.
Speaking of staying informed, there's one thing we need to talk about: the environmental impact. There's been a lot of talk about the energy consumption of some blockchain networks, like Bitcoin, for example. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a valid concern for sure, and we need to acknowledge that some networks do use a lot of energy. But it's not so simple. The energy consumption of blockchain depends on several things, including the consensus mechanism used, the network size, and how efficient the hardware is.
So it's not really fair to lump all blockchains together when it comes to energy use.
Right. And there are a lot of efforts to make blockchain more sustainable. Many newer blockchains use more efficient consensus mechanisms, like proof of stake, which requires a lot less energy than proof of work.
Oh, interesting. What else is being done?
Well, there are also initiatives to use renewable energy sources to power blockchain networks and develop more energy-efficient hardware. It's a work in progress, but the industry is aware of the issue and actively seeking solutions.
That's encouraging to hear. Like with any new technology, it's about weighing the benefits and the downsides and aiming for responsible development. Now, I want to ask you about something that I know is on a lot of people's minds. What about the future of cryptocurrency?
Oh, that's a topic that generates a lot of passionate discussion. Bitcoin has been grabbing headlines for years, of course, but now there are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there, making the landscape, well, pretty complex.
So should we all be rushing out to buy Bitcoin? Or, I don't know, diversifying with other cryptocurrencies?
Well, I can't give financial advice, but I can say that the key is to approach cryptocurrency with a critical and informed mindset. Don't just follow the crowd. Take time to understand the technology, the different types of cryptocurrencies, and the potential risks and rewards.
That's great advice. It's easy to get caught up in the hype and make impulsive decisions, especially when it comes to investments. But as we've seen, blockchain and cryptocurrency are complicated
Yeah,
and always changing. So educating yourself is really key.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not just about the technology itself, it's about understanding the bigger picture. The future of cryptocurrency will be shaped by so many factors: regulations, tech advancements, market sentiment, even global events.
It sounds like the only certainty is that things will keep changing. But that's also what makes it so fascinating. There's a sense of adventure and discovery, a feeling that we're witnessing something truly revolutionary.
Exactly. There might be bumps along the way, sure, but the potential of blockchain and cryptocurrency to change finance and so much more, it's undeniable. It's an exciting journey. And I, for one, am very curious to see where it takes us next.
I love that perspective. We've covered so much ground today. The incredible potential of blockchain, from its impact on traditional finance to its power to empower individuals and create a more inclusive world. But there's still so much more to explore. Join us for part 3. As we continue our journey through the blockchain universe, we'll delve into even more specific uses, emerging trends, and the ethical considerations that are shaping this rapidly evolving space. Welcome back to the final part of our blockchain deep dive. So far, we've been exploring how blockchain is like reshaping finance. But now, it's time to go beyond those borders. Get ready to explore how blockchain is impacting practically every industry you can imagine.
It really is remarkable how blockchain is finding its way into so many different areas.
Yeah.
From revolutionizing supply chains to protecting creative works, blockchain is making its mark on the world. And I think we're only beginning to grasp how big this is going to be.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about blockchain, like bringing more transparency to supply chains, especially when it comes to, knowing where our products come from and how they're made. Can you shed some light on that for us?
Absolutely. So imagine the journey of a product, from raw materials to the final product you see on a store shelf. It usually involves a pretty complex web of suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, all of that. Blockchain can create a secure and transparent record of every single step in that journey, tracking the origin, the movement, the handling of goods at each stage.
So it's like giving each product a digital passport,
Yeah.
right? Providing a clear and tamper-proof history. What are the real benefits of that kind of transparency then?
Well, for us as consumers, it means greater confidence in the products we buy. You can verify the authenticity of goods, ensure ethical sourcing practices. You can even track the sustainability of production. For businesses, it can streamline operations, reduce costs, and minimize the risk of things like fraud and counterfeit.
It sounds like a total game changer. For industries like food, fashion, pharmaceuticals, where knowing the origin journey of a product is so important. What other, like, exciting applications are out there?
Another area where blockchain is making waves is in protecting intellectual property. Creators, whether they're artists, musicians, or inventors, often face challenges protecting their work from being copied or stolen. Blockchain offers a secure and unchangeable way to register and timestamp their creations, establishing clear proof of ownership, making it much harder for others to infringe on their rights.
That's huge for creators, right? It's like having a digital notary service that protects their work from the moment it's created.
Precisely. And this applies not only to creative works, but also to other forms of intellectual property like patents, trademarks, trade secrets. Blockchain can simplify the registration process, reduce costs, and improve the efficiency of managing and enforcing those intellectual property rights.
So we've talked about finance, supply chains, intellectual property. And you mentioned voting systems earlier. Can you tell us more about how blockchain could actually change how we vote?
It's a really interesting application with the potential to address a lot of the problems we see with traditional voting systems. Issues like voter fraud, ballot tampering, lack of transparency in counting votes, all of that could potentially be tackled with blockchain. It can create a secure, transparent, and auditable platform for both casting and counting votes, making it much more difficult to manipulate the results.
That sounds incredible. It could increase trust in the democratic process, empower voters, even encourage greater participation. But wouldn't implementing a system like this on a large scale be a huge challenge?
Of course, there are technical and logistical hurdles, just like with any new technology. But the good news is that many countries and organizations are already testing blockchain-based voting systems, and the results have been really promising.
So we might actually see blockchain-based voting become more common in the future.
It's definitely possible, especially as the technology matures and gains wider acceptance.
It's fascinating to think about how blockchain could, like, reshape the very foundations of our society, from how we do business to how we govern ourselves, even how we protect creative endeavors. But with all these potential benefits, I think it's important to also acknowledge that we can't ignore the ethical implications that come with such a powerful technology, right?
You're absolutely right. As with any technology that has the potential to change the world, we need to be mindful of the ethical considerations and address them responsibly.
So what are some of the ethical concerns we should be thinking about?
One important concern is the potential for bias and discrimination in the algorithms used in blockchain applications. If these algorithms are developed using biased data, they can perpetuate existing inequalities and lead to unfair outcomes.
Right. So it's not just about the technology itself. It's also about ensuring that it's developed and used in a way that promotes fairness and inclusivity.
Exactly. We need to be proactive in guiding the development and deployment of blockchain technology, focusing on human rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability. Having open and inclusive conversations about these issues is crucial as blockchain continues to evolve and affect our lives.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. We've explored the amazing world of blockchain, from its, roots in cryptocurrency to its potential to revolutionize almost every industry imaginable. We've uncovered the technical complexities, the exciting possibilities, and the ethical considerations that come with such a game-changing technology.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey through the blockchain landscape. And one thing is clear, this is just the beginning. As blockchain continues to evolve, we can expect even more innovative uses, groundbreaking applications, and important discussions about its impact on society.
It's an exciting time to be witnessing this technological revolution unfold. We encourage all of you to continue exploring, learning, and engaging in conversations about the future of blockchain and its role in shaping our world. Until next time, keep diving deep.